Welcome back to Cultivated Live here at Planet 13 in Las Vegas. I'm Jay, Krista, Jeremy, and Brad.
Hello.
Brad Spirrison. Brad, aside from my brother who is also here, you are the person I've known longest. I don't even know if they know this.
We're like brothers.
We are like brothers. We lived on the same freshman dorm.
We did.
Floor, like we were adjacent rooms.
This is like
Weed brings us back together.
It does, and I just wish we. Not that we didn't spend any time smoking pot. I wish we did more together.
Well, I got busted smoking pot, so the whole second.
So maybe I was
semester,
much smarter.
I couldn't even do it.
Really?
Yeah, but I've made up for it ever since.
You're still going.
Yeah, one of the calling cards for getting into the industry. I have empathy.
For people. So we went to Emory together. We didn't know each other before we got there, but certainly we did when we were there. And then reconnected years, like within the past 5 years, because you launched Grown In.
Yes.
And you're based in Chicago. Tell us what Grown In, the evolution of Grown In, and where you are today.
Sure. So Grown In is a cannabis media company, like other great cannabis media companies that are launching here in Vegas today. There needs to be more of us. So we've been doing it for 4 years. We started 4 years ago this week.
Oh, wow.
So in late 19, the inception originally was a newsletter to cover the emerging Illinois market, which was about to go to adult use from recreational. I did not realize at the time that Illinois and Chicago is arguably the cannabis capital of the United States, at least as measured by the concentration of multi-state operators. Primarily Green Thumb, Cresco, Verano, PharmaCann, and we still take credit for Curaleaf because it's mainly grassroots. You could see my Chicago accent coming when I talk about that. Anyway, started as a newsletter. We're our second iteration beyond the newsletter in 2020, 2021 was the launch of a national responsible-based vendor training program. And today is a multimedia company. We do live events. We focus on networking. We focus on alliteration because our mission is to create and cultivate commercial connections among cannabis industry professionals with complementary interests for the purpose of fostering economic development, access, and opportunity for all stakeholders in the ascending industry.
That's pretty good. You just rifled that off.
Clean living.
Right, that's what I was going to chalk it up to. But tell us about some of the forms it takes now. You talk about networking, but you're doing some really interesting things. Well, you're doing some really interesting things. One of the interesting things that I like that you're doing is I'm going to screw it up, but like cultivators and retailers getting together, like up and down the supply chain.
So one of our franchise events that started in Illinois and it's going to New York, Ohio, and other markets are statewide cannabis business conferences. So these are primarily in, I said Web 2.0, Cannabis 2.0, 3.0 markets in the Midwest, Northeast, same regulatory framework as Illinois. So Massachusetts, New York, pretty much every new state going legal right now is adopting a similar model where you have a finite number of incumbent large retailers like the MSOs I just described. But then you have this emerging market of largely social equity driven startups on the retail manufacturing and we'll call it craft or small growth side. We, in many ways, are the doobie diplomats between those constituencies.
You really like alliterations.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
And I do. I don't know. I tried doing it there. So, while it's well chronicled, among your readers, viewers, followers, ours as well, the many differences that like big corporate cannabis has with social upstarts in terms of having maybe certainly a large position in markets where others are trying to get in. What we've realized is, that the reality is in New York in particular, certainly in Illinois over the last couple of years, we need to create commercial connections between the MSOs and the social equity startups. And so what we do is we literally convene, there are about 18 established operators in Illinois. They come to our events. We then curate scheduled meetings with newer operators that are about to come online over the next 3 to 30 months. And so what happens there is professional commercial relationships develop between large established cannabis companies and social startups that, they might be battling from a lobbying perspective on, what the priorities are in order to normalize this industry. But the reality is a Cresco or a GTI has a lot of weed to sell given their CapEx investments. And if you're a social equity dispensary in Illinois, in New York, in many of these markets, the only place you're going to get your supply is from the incumbents until the other growers come online. So we do those quarterly in Illinois. We're going to start them in New York in Q1 of 2024. Ohio and Missouri are other markets that are asking us to do that.
How do you work on breaking down those barriers between MSOs and social equity stakeholders, whatever you may call them? I mean, I've covered this for a long time, and the conversation is loud, and it's quite toxic at times.
No. They have many reasons to distrust each other. However,
structurally,
You really
however,
are a doobie diplomat.
Yeah,
we're the doobie diplomat. So if you take an angle from 35,000 feet out, it takes a certain type of individual to want to get into the cannabis industry today, or really at any time. So if you start with how we all have things in common, which is at some point in our lives, most of us transitioned from another sector into cannabis. Some of the younger folks just got out and they never knew any other kind of world. Right. But there's very few of us. And so if you could take that mindset of I want to devote my career in cannabis during this ascending time, where I call it the internet of 1994, we need to find things to bring us together. And this is a capitalistic enterprise. And so if we can make sure that there are financial incentives between the buyers and the sellers, they might still battle in the state capitals in Albany, Springfield, whatever, but relationships are developing, partnerships are developing. We're realizing that interests that we think are entrenched for a period of time tend to dissolve away when we realize that there's an opportunity to capture money in a sector where obviously capital is hard to come by.
Can I ask you another thing you're doing?
Please do.
Because you're also both when you talk privately but also publicly talking about innovation in the space.
Yes.
And how to foster innovation, technology,
yes.
product, whatever it is. And you, of course, want to see it happen in Chicago. You're a hometown boy. Talk about what you're trying to foster in terms of innovation in Illinois specifically and how that's fostered.
Sure. So there is a world-class incubator in Chicago called 1871, named after the year of the Chicago fire. Started by J.B. Pritzker, who is now governor of Illinois. He was the guy that signed the program into law and probably going to be running for president in about 3 or 4 years. What we do is use that space that was originally developed for purely tech and digital companies, and as part of what's called the Cannabis Innovation Lab, which is actually international in scope. We had a cohort about 50 different startups representing 18 states and 3 countries to participate in year 1. In year 2, what we are doing is in this market, particularly in the fundraising environment, we are level setting expectations and tightening business plans and investor communications for the next generation of startups that will invariably find opportunity in this space. So what we're doing with innovation, and what I like to think about in this period of time, having lived through the internet.com boom and bust and other subsequent ascending industries, is there's no better time to start a company, a media company, when the market is down. Because when the market is down after, a bullish period over the last couple of years, a lot of the, hucksters that came here 2 years ago that really didn't have a passion for the plant, a passion for the industry, they just were going after a gold rush, you notice many of them are not here this year.
Right.
There's not funding for it. There's not an environment for it. Who remains are folks like us that believe, that need it, that want it, that could then bring in others that have been kind of curious and thinking, well, maybe now I want to start my career in this space. And what is it? Necessity is the mother of an invention. Right now, it's really hard to succeed. Those companies that succeed are going to be glorious. So we want to create, through Cannabis Innovation Lab at 1871, as well as through other incubators in other states, a model where we could identify best practices for cannabis startups, both licensed holders as well as a lot of digital technology companies, to succeed in ways they otherwise would not.
I love it. I love what you're doing. Love Grown In. Love the team. And I don't love where we are in the timing of today right now. We're like super backed up, and it's all my fault, so I feel bad. But can we promise that you'll come back onto a
By all means.
Okay.
By all means. I really appreciate being here. I really celebrate the launch of Cultivated. And I look forward to many, many great times ahead.
I look forward to it too, especially today, later today, as we all get through to Friday, hopefully, back to our lives. But also as things progress, I really appreciate the time. Thanks so much for the team for coming, and we look forward to seeing you and connecting with you again soon.
Congratulations on the launch. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Brad. That's Brad Spirrison from Grown In. We'll be right back with Frederica Easley from the People's Ecosystem. So we'll be right back. We're going to make this a very quick change. From Planet 13, we are Cultivated Live. We'll be right back.